Lois Smith. I'm an associate professor in the School of Criminal Justice at the University of Cincinnati and the director of the Center for Justice and Communities. I also serve as the director of training and applied research for Rite of Passage, a national provider of programs for youth. Human trafficking is a crime and human rights abuse involving the exploitation of a person for labor, services, or commercial sex. Victims are forced, defrauded, or coerced into trafficking. In the United States, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 and all of its subsequent reauthorizations recognize and define two primary forms of human trafficking: sex trafficking and forced labor. And forced labor involves involuntary servitude, debt bondage, or slavery. It is very difficult to accurately estimate the total number of victims, but some of the most credible sources say that there are 27.6 million victims worldwide of trafficking at any given time. Even if victims initially offer consent, that consent is rendered meaningless by the actions of the traffickers to exploit them for labor, services, or commercial sex. Human traffickers prey on people of all ages, backgrounds, and nationalities, but they do disproportionately target individuals who are at risk. So, for example, people who have been exposed to or experienced other forms of violence, as well as people who are disconnected from stable support networks. So, for example, runaway and homeless youth, unaccompanied minors, children who are placed in foster homes or engaged in the justice system. Needless to say, for victims of human trafficking, they experience a broad range of trauma responses. And so trauma-informed treatment approaches and primarily cognitive behavioral types of treatment have been shown to be most effective. The other thing that is really important is having programs that involve people with lived experience. So, for example, people who have their own experiences of victimization or having been involved as victims of human trafficking to be involved in providing support for people who are receiving treatment. What is probably less well understood by the general population is that many victims of human trafficking will go back, they'll return to human trafficking, sometimes many times before they are successful at leaving human trafficking for good. Many of the portrayals of human trafficking in film or in popular media don't always accurately portray the extent to which this happens. It's oftentimes heartbreaking and also very difficult for people who work in the system to understand why victims would return to situations of human trafficking.
So I'm Teresa Flores. I am a survivor of domestic minor sex trafficking in the United States. And I am the founder and director of the SOAP project, which stands for Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution. So in 2007, I started speaking publicly about my story to raise awareness because I didn't know until I was 40 what had happened to me was called human trafficking. And so there was really a lack of awareness, especially since this is the second leading crime in the United States. So as I was going around speaking about it, people were getting really upset and thinking, I had no idea. I didn't know this was such a big problem. What can I do about it? And I didn't have an answer besides pray about it, donate money, don't go to strip clubs, things like that. But I came up with the idea that there's a human trafficking hotline number, and most victims don't know that. And so if we could get people to help us, we could distribute this phone number and look for missing kids. So my case was probably one of the first sextortion cases, before that was even a name, where I was blackmailed with photos and then trafficked to earn back the photos. So sextortion is the #1 threat to teenagers today. Sextortion is not trafficking, but it can definitely lead into human trafficking. So really being careful of the pictures that we take and who we share them with, who we're talking to online. They're gonna tell you that they're one person, and that might not be who they are. If there's somebody threatening you or blackmailing you to provide photos or else, then that's a dangerous situation. I mean, I was sold for 2 years because I felt like I couldn't tell anybody what was going on. It would have helped me if I would have identified one person in my life that I could have told anything to. I think it would have gotten me out of that situation. So I always recommend teens think of somebody. It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a teacher, it could be a church member, anybody, but find one person that you trust, that you could talk, that you could talk to and tell anything that's going on. Because sometimes when things like this happen, we don't make it out. So we all know the popular federal definition, but I'd like to say if somebody's being blackmailed, manipulated, or threatened into commercial sex or forced labor, then that's what human trafficking is. You don't have to ever lay a hand on somebody. Just the threats alone are enough. You're supposed to have force, fraud, or coercion if they're over 18, but you don't need that if they're under 18. So we like to mobilize communities and get them involved in the awareness and education piece to help us distribute bars of soap and makeup remover wipes with the National Human Trafficking Hotline number on them to hotels and motels, specifically around big sporting events. And we also hand out missing children's posters in hopes that we can rescue some of these missing and runaway teens that are being trafficked. We also help survivors heal. We do wellness weekends. We have a dental program, emergency services, and a support group that helps survivors, male and female, nationwide. Our first outreach that we did was in 2010 at the Dallas Super Bowl, and we're getting ready for our 14th Super Bowl in February. I hear little stories, now and again. I had a lady stop by my table at an event at a concert, and she said, "Oh, I've seen this bar of soap before," and she said, "But I wasn't ready to call it yet." She said, but it was wonderful just to know that people cared and put that there. We've had teams go to hotels, and a missing child from the poster was standing right there in the lobby. And so they were able to call the police and rescue her out of that situation. So I think we need to do a better job as a community, as friends, to notice that something's wrong with one of our friends or somebody, and really trying to help each other out. They can go to our website, www.soapproject.org, and we do volunteer opportunities all around the country, and then really donations as well, having fundraisers for us. It takes a lot of money to do this. We just have provided 4 survivors with new teeth because their teeth had been knocked out while they were trafficked. And these are older women that have gone their whole life with this, everyday reminder, even afterwards. So getting money to fund these programs, these support groups, and the dental program, and our therapeutic weekends is really important. I would definitely want students to read my book. I have 2 books. One is The Slave Across the Street, and it's a bestseller, and it's my story of how I got caught up in this. And then what I had to do to heal afterwards to get to where I am today. The other book that's really great for teens is Slavery in the Land of the Free. And it's a guide for students on what is human trafficking, labor trafficking, sex trafficking globally, United States, because we feed into trafficking every day. If you just go to your closet and you see what countries your clothes were all made in, I mean, likelihood that some of your clothes were made by slaves is very high. Where does the coffee come if you drink coffee in the morning? Things like that. So really researching this and learning about how we are part of the problem.